Who's present at this time?
Mr. Cancio.
Present.
Mr. Gonzalez. Mr. Holland. Mr. Martinez. Mr. Meyer. Ms. Fano. Ms. Weinberg. Secretary Pago. Treasurer Rodriguez Pina.
Here.
Vice Chair Foray. Chair Gutierrez.
Here. More than half quorum. Thank you very much. And we move on to council for declaration of conflicts.
Do any members have any conflicts they have to report?
Anything to anyone. This is
For the
a
record.
discussion.
Just for the
almost
record.
as a whole. Yeah. Yes, sometimes there are. In this case, if the member of the public wants to speak, addresses, they're welcome to come before us at this moment in time. But make sure you do state your name and your real address, and because if you have an outstanding toll, we want to make sure we send it to you. And with that, there's the public comment is now closed, and we continue to move forward. This is a very important day. It's called Think Big for one reason. You have to think big. You have to think outside the box. And it's to get us out of our comfort zone and to get us out of what we do for business. MDX is a toll agency. Please don't get confused. It's a toll agency. And yes, there are movements that were never told that now are told, so people hurt. We understand that. But knowing that and understanding that and leaving that to a side for a moment, what else can MDX do with its assets, with its professionals that work at MDX, that are part of MDX, and think and do something different? So collectively, staff got together, and today there's a lot of ideas that are before us that they've brainstormed, and we as policymakers have the ability to move them as action item and move them on to the board for approval and implementation. Please, when you look at these ideas, look at them with an open mind. Stop thinking about a toll. Start thinking about how else we can do innovative things to improve MDX and provide new mobility, help the congestion, and move people in different ways, and not necessarily just in their car, okay? Giving options. But I also tell you this, keep an open mind. Stop thinking about, oh, maybe this is part of the strategic plan. No, it isn't. There is a strategic plan that is almost ready, and hopefully we will get to see it in 2015, and it's a good plan. This has nothing to do with the strategic plan. This is how we do things differently, because we are innovators. We want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. So, as always providing something of the unexpected, I'm going to tell you the same. We're not going to start in order. I have picked something at random, which was intended to be at the end because I wanted to escalate the meeting, but instead we've decided to turn it around, and I'm going to say the following. Almost one of the last items will now be presented first because I want to catch everybody fresh when they just had lunch, and then we move from there, okay? We've got to do things differently. I don't know how to say this, and I could tell you in Spanish. We can't continue to be the same and expect something different. We've got to listen. We've got to answer to those people that are thinking, are you kidding? No, we're not kidding. We care. We care about our system. It's safe. We also care about this community. And this is what we do. And this is how we're going to do it. So with that, I'm going to open it up to our executive director. And here we go.
Madam Chair, before we get started, you challenged us. I think you put out a memo on this committee. And yes, what you have before you is staff brainstorming different ideas, but I also did receive calls from board members, and I'm not going to steal any thunder, so I'll let the board members, when it's time to present their ideas as well. I think the way we took it was there was nothing off the table. The other challenge that I gave the staff, and the staff took upon themselves, was that think of everything outside of the toll. Think of everything outside of what the core purpose, which is, we build transportation projects, we finance them with tolls. We are very comfortable with that. We're very good at what we do. We're recognized for being very good at what we do. But in this first idea that we're going to discuss, and I'm going to ask Marie to get up and present it, the one thing that we started discussing when we did the toll adjustments last 2 years ago, when we closed our system, which was price our system, equitably distribute what everybody pays on our system, we always knew that there was going to be a portion of the community that was going to be disappointed because they'd never paid a toll. There was also going to be a portion of the community that was going to be happy because their toll was going to go down. And then there was going to be another portion of the community that was just going to say, hey, that's the cost of doing business. I'm okay with it. I'm going to move on. Okay? During that time, the board, and I think Vice Chair Gutierrez at the time, challenged us to come up with a discount program. And we came up with what we called the Advantage Program. There wasn't a lot of examples to go after. We set very rigid criteria. But what we realized back then is that we have criteria, very clear, and Marie's going to explain it, on how we operate, how this board conducts itself, and it's always about how we're going to impress the financial markets, the bondholders, the financial rating agencies. The goal is always to make sure those rating agencies are comfortable with the management, comfortable with the policies, comfortable with the direction, comfortable with operations, expenditures, so on and so forth. Why? Because we want the lowest interest rate, borrowing cost, which is a benefit to the community. Problem is that the community, and in meetings, we hear this from the community, is that all we cater to is the financial markets. Well, at the end of the day, we're borrowing money from the financial markets, but who pays that back? The public does. So why not establish the same relationship that we have with the financial markets from an operational standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint? Why not have the same relationship with our users, our customers, the people that pay the toll every day? And that's a setup, and I'll let Marie discuss the idea that we put on the table, that we're putting on the table. So,
thank you, Javier.
So Javier is correct. You're going to have to fast forward.
Fast forward?
Yeah, to the slide. Huh?
We're very efficient.
Oh. Okay, great. Okay.
So just to take a step back, MDX is an enterprise fund. It's called a proprietary fund. And what that really means is we operate similar to a business, such as, water and sewer, a golf course. But even though we operate such as a private business, we have a public purpose. And our purpose is mobility in Miami-Dade County. We also have a governing board, very similar to corporations and companies. We operate and finance activities similar to the private sector because we don't get any tax dollars. We don't get any grant dollars. We don't get any sales tax money. So we basically have to figure out how to finance our organization. So we issue debt in the open market, as Javier just stated. Services are paid by user fee. We charge a user fee. Same thing as you go to the golf course, you got to pay to go use the golf course. You got to go pay for utility. So enterprise funds charge user fees. But the enterprise funds also has financial responsibilities and the obligation to pay back its debt. Very similar to any organization, private sector. MDX has many stakeholders, but two of the most important stakeholders is our commuters and our bondholders. Our bondholders invest in the system. Our commuters invest in the system also by paying the tolls. And we have commitments to both of them. And if you look on the slide, pretty much those commitments are pretty much the same: to run an efficient organization, to be financially sound, to be prudent, to use the toll dollars for what is intended purpose, to comply with all laws, to communicate to the public, to the bondholders, to be transparent. So all of those commitments, whether it's a bondholder or a commuter, it's one and the same. The only difference on the left-hand side of that slide is the bondholders get a financial repayment. They get the return on their investment, which is called interest. The commuters also get a return on their investment, but it's not a financial return. They get an indirect financial return, better driving experience, mobility, quality of life. So they do get the benefit of MDX maintaining its organization in a sound and prudent way. So our idea is to make our commuters an investor, a bondholder, a stockholder, shareholder, whatever the terminology is. And we came up with the idea of a cashback dividend program. And I'm practicing my Spanish, and I think it translates to dividendo en efectivo. I think that's how it translates. So our customers, our commuters, was that a good pronunciation? Will become our investors. They have a financial stake now on how we run the organization. They've always had a stake on how we run the organization, but now they have a direct financial stake to it. So the program would be structured in such a way that dividends would be tied to MDX's financial performance and governance. Every decision we make has a financial impact. When we let a project and that project comes in below estimate, guess what? That's less money that has to go to the capital program. If we manage our expenses, again, that gives us additional net revenues. So every decision we make, every policy we make is important. So that's why governance is up there. So the direct financial benefit to this program is that they're going to get a return on investments. They don't have a share, they don't have a stock, but they're going to get a portion of their tolls back. So the cash dividend program demonstrates to the authorities stable financial results and good governance. The bondholders will always remain the senior lien priority because that's legally what we're required to. The system is in trust, and we must meet our financial obligations to them first. All our obligations will also be met first. So let me give you an example of how the program would work. In any given year, if our net revenues is let's say it's $128 million, and we have to make payments to our bondholders of $67 million, the actual senior coverage calculation is 1.91. But our financing plan said we only needed 1.85. So what MDX would do is they wouldn't completely give the 6 basis points back because, I'll go into that a little later, we would declare dividends of a certain amount. In this example, I'm saying we declare dividends of $3 million. We'll take a step back here on why the senior coverage is so important. And by the way, this afternoon we are actually waiting for our ratings from Fitch, who's meeting in the credit committee this morning. Hopefully I have some positive news to report this afternoon. But the credit rating is so important because the majority of our bondholders are institutional investors. That means they go into funds. And all of those funds have ratings criteria, restriction. So if you go below a certain rating, they would have to sell it out of that fund. And obviously, when that happens, that's an impact to the financial market, to our reputation, our ability to borrow. So we really have a commitment to our bondholders to maintain the highest rating. And we do that by managing the organization in the most prudent way. The debt service coverage ratio projection requirement is also how we need to have cash funded the projects. That coverage yields a certain cash position that goes into the capital funding projects. It also gives us the ability to fund the renewal replacement. It gives us the ability to pay our principal and interest, and obviously there's certain required reserves based upon the trust indenture. So that's why the senior debt coverage is so important. It's really tied to a cash position. So I wanted to show you a calculation on how the cashback dividend calculation would work. If we had $3 million, we declared a dividend of $3 million, we have 75,000 commuters who register. And I just sort of made these numbers up randomly to show you the calculation. But if 20,000 of those 75 pay a $400 an annual toll, and I took an average, I did a little bit more, 275 days, 5 days a week, plus a couple of weekends, their average daily toll is about $1.45. And in this case, MDX would declare 20% dividend to the commuters that particular year. So the $400 category of commuters would get $80 back. So after the dividend is declared, their toll went from $1.45 to $1.16. So in a sense, we're actually reducing their toll, but we're doing it in a very fiscally responsible way. We're meeting all our obligations. We're going to build the projects that we said we were going to build. We're going to move mobility forward. We're going to make sure economic development, all of those commitments we made, we're going to be able to do it this way. So, and I did the same thing for, the lower tier, 30,000 people at $200 a year. they pay 73 cents. They would get $40 back. At the end, they would pay 58 cents for their daily commute. Did an example in the lower half of the screen. If 50,000 people basically register this program, so there's less people in the program, so there's more money to distribute. So the person who paid $400 in this case would get $100 back. So now their toll went from $1.45 to $1.09. Somebody who's paying $200 was paying 73 cents. Now they're paying 55 cents a day. And I did on the high end on the number of days. So this program makes sense from the standpoint that it varies. So one of my colleagues was very nice to do this graph for me. The commuters basically pay a toll. And now their benefit, not only do they get a better driving experience, mobility and connectivity, supports the local economy, home values, jobs, not only do they get all of those benefits that they had prior to this program, now they get a return on their investment. They get a dividend back. So this program puts them in the same position as any other investor. So the program the criteria, which is really just a suggestion at this point, so I think it's open discussion. MDX must exceed its financial projections and senior debt coverage ratio. You got to be a SunPass customer in good standing. You got to be a Miami-Dade County resident and business. Again, we're promoting Miami-Dade County, so we did put a stipulation in Miami-Dade County. This is for individuals and businesses only. And we have a minimum threshold of $100 a year that you would qualify for this program. And then the annual dividends and percentage would be declared by the Budget and Finance Committee after the financial statements year-end closing, and the dividends payout would occur in mid-December. So I did a little bit of a summary of what I just went over, question and answer. What is the program? This program is MDX will declare a cash dividend from net revenues earned in a fiscal year for eligible customers. The amount of the cash dividends will be determined by the Budget and Finance Committee by October, the first half of the subsequent fiscal year, based upon a variety of business and economic factors. It's very similar how any organization runs when it gives a dividend to its investors. When will the cashback dividend check be distributed? The cashback dividends are expected to be mailed by mid-December. Why does MDX even offer a cashback dividend? Cashback dividends are a component of MDX's customer value initiative and one of the unique benefits of investing in mobility of our community. Cashback dividends are a way of promoting equitable toll among the Expressway loyal customers. How will my cashback dividend be calculated? I gave you the example earlier. The cashback dividend is based upon MDX exceeding its financial projection and senior debt coverage. The board will declare a cashback dividend amount and distribution percentage. So the board will make a decision whether it's $2 million, $3 million, whether it's 20% or 10%, and it varies year over year. Why hasn't MDX distributed all of its net excess revenue? Well, MDX must first comply with all of its debt obligation, its reserve requirement, as well as continue to fund the capital necessary for future growth of the system and service our customers. Will MDX distribute a cashback dividend every year? While this is a pilot program, MDX board would like to distribute a cashback dividends every year that the financial projections and senior debt coverage is exceeded. The extent of the cash amount, however, will be determined based upon the end of the year and will be based upon a variety of business and economic factors. So I think that's the summarization of the program, and we're here to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Marie. I'm sure that everybody has lots of questions. The first thing you need to understand is we are responsible to our bondholders. We're not changing anything except for the fact that we're doing the following. Once the construction program is paid, and this happens every year, once we have the maintenance and operations covered, and the coverage ratio is taken care of, any overage funds that are available that are at that point net, that becomes a dividend. It gets discussed at Budget and Finance, and all those SunPass users that are our customers are now, which they've always been the stakeholders, but they are the investors. They are getting this check back. So they know what they're investing, and anything that we don't need to use after everything else is covered, remember, after everything else is covered, they're getting back. Don't think about, well, what happens that we're not able to do another construction job? If there isn't another construction job, that it isn't part of the construction program, it's a different movement. It is not part of this. It is different. It is separate. It is a whole different process to get that one in. We're talking about where we are today. You understand? This is where we are today. This is our current financial situation. And remember, every year is not going to be the same because we, MDX, needs to perform better. We are more than accountable to be efficient, to work better, to develop better, to then be able to give back more. So,
Madam Chair, if I may, because I think, I know there's going to be a lot of conversation on this. I've had the privilege of having conversations with many toll operators around the world. And I am well aware that toll operators are viewed as big, bad, and ugly because all toll operators care about is making money. And that is very true when you have a concession. When you have a concession and you work out a 99-year lease and you basically agree with the toll rates, and this is how it operates all over Europe, the goal is for that operator to be more efficient, to reduce operating costs. They still have to provide a service to the customer because they want to attract more cars into their facility. But at the end of the day, the reason they do it is they want to distribute profits to their shareholders in the private sector. In governments, I think the general public feels that, number one, all we care about is collecting the toll. Number two, because we're government, we're never going to be efficient. So there's no incentive. And at the end of the day, if we have extra money, we put it in some dark hole somewhere so we can give ourselves raises or give it to our friends. That is, in essence, what happens. Okay? So it dawned on me when we had this conversation during session, prior to session, last year, and when Marie Schaefer brought this idea to me, which has been in the works for a while. We've been thinking about it, but we didn't know how to implement it. We started thinking to ourselves, now we're going to be viewed as having all this money, because that is the perception. We have money to solve everybody's problems. In fact, there was amendments filed that would take net revenues off the top and give it to Miami-Dade Transit to fund Metro Rail, but I'm not sure what extension that would be. And it dawned on me, before I divert 1 penny of toll dollars from the users of the system to another system that may not work, there's ways of doing that, but it has to be in a controlled environment. I'd rather give it back to the people. And I'd rather bet on ourselves being efficient than anything else. And that's basically what we're saying. We're going to basically bet on ourselves. Why? Because we know we can. Why? Because the rating agencies have recognized us for being very good at what we do and having good governance, good policies. We're very good at managing our debt. We're very good at forward thinking in our financial policies. We're very good at operating our system. We're very good at managing our consultants. We have great partners that care about the system. So why not translate that to the community? Why not put ourselves out there to the community and have that relationship with the community? That's my opinion. I said it at the Chamber of Commerce. The only way you help yourself, the only way we're going to help ourselves here in Miami is if we help ourselves, if the local community helps itself. If we depend on anybody else, we're not going to win. So why not create that relationship with the local community and say, hey, let's bet on ourselves. We know we can do this. So we're here to answer questions.
You ready to take comments?
yes.
Well, I'll tell you, I am flabbergasted, and I want to tell you that I am very, very happy. I really want to go out of my way to commend you, Maritza, our chair, Javier, our executive director, and Marie, our financial guru, and your team for what I think is a classic Javier Rodriguez MDX approach to problems, and that is upfront, straight arrow, right to the issue, responsible, fiscally responsible, and honest. This is an honest way of doing it. So as we do better, we give some of the money that we have a surplus back to the users that deserve that. In the first place, it sets a precedent. This is I think, Javier, you're the chair of IBTTA this year. To me, if this passes, when you say goodbye in Ireland, I think this ought to be your swan song as chair, is to say, look what MDX has done. This is what you ought to do. This is the future, because we need to win. We're never going to win the public relations game on this thing. But in a situation, I don't know whether you saw the news half an hour ago. Congressman Ryan, you know, the chair of the Republican budget committee in Congress, said we're not going to increase any gasoline fee. We're not going to increase any fees. There is no money for infrastructure. Hello. There is no money. Congress is not giving any money. And the infrastructure of the United States is in dilapidated form. While China keeps building and building and building, we don't even maintain what we have. And the point is that the state, you know, I serve on the Florida Transportation. I see this every month. This morning we had an hour conference call, $10 billion of which 70% goes to maintenance and blah, blah, blah. What's left is very little. In 5 years, Miami-Dade County, in 5 years, is going to get $1.4 billion from the federal government and the state. 1.4? That does the Kendall project and 3 other projects. That's it. There's no money. So I think for MDX, who had to increase these tolls to survive and we've never gone into that subject completely. One of these days I'm going to. For us to progress, the way for us to get confidence back from the community is by being straight arrow, is by playing it by the rules. And what you've come up with, which is a brilliant, innovative idea, is that as we do well, our users do well. It's a slow process. It's going to take time. But I'm going to tell you, if this works out, and at the end of and in December, I get an $80 or $100 check back because of the system, somebody's going to say, well, you know, I guess I got to rethink this. And I think this community will they'll never be happy with tolls, but at least they'll know that we're playing it straight. And I really commend you. There's one last thing that I want to say. You know, I am for moving out and doing innovative, creative, new, intelligent, high technology things. But those things have got to stand on their own. You're right. We can't do what Chicago did. We can't do what Indiana did. Chicago used its transportation monies to cover the budget. And New York it costs $15 to $20 to get into New York City. If you live in New Jersey or Long Island or Connecticut and you work in the city, it's going to cost you $20 to get in, okay? Now, what they're doing is they're taking some of that money to run the deficits in their transit system. And guess what? There's no end to it. It's a disaster. It's a total disaster. And there are new projects like the 2nd Avenue project. It's been delayed now for 5 years. It'll be 10 years before it gets done because they just can't put it together. We can't fall into that trap. And I think this is a brilliant way also of avoiding us putting money into the deficits of transit. And I'll just leave you with one thought. Our bus system, Miami-Dade Transit, operates buses. The expenses are 30% higher than any other bus system in Florida. And then the average, and than any of our competitive bus systems. Why? There's something wrong. There's something wrong. And the point I'm trying to make is that the Miami Herald has just taken off on MDX. They've never clearly explain what happened to the half cent. That's big, $2 billion. Where's $2 billion gone? That's never been explained to this community. Right now, and I know that Mr. Calcio is opposed, I'm for managed lanes. Our governor, the governor of the state of Florida, is putting in $3.5 billion. I've looked into it. $3.5 billion in the managed lanes. It's not $3.5 billion. It's $6.5 billion. That is the largest expenditure in any item in the history of Florida in transportation. That is the biggest single item that has been expended. And, you know, I don't know whether it's going to work or not, but discuss that today. But the point is that MDX is doing things by the book in an intelligent and meaningful way. And I commend you, Madam Chair. I commend you, Mr. Executive Director, and Marie for thinking out of the box and thinking in what I think is not a public relations move, because this is not that, in a real meaningful innovative solution. Thank you.
If I may, Madam Chair, because I think there's a lingering question that at least it stayed in my mind that I want to make sure I address, and I know that both you and Vice Chair Ferre alluded to it. Well, we have $6 billion worth of transportation needs in this community, right? We identified it in our master plan.
Well, more than that.
You know, $6 billion worth. And I took that into account. And I've actually had meetings, Marie has joined me, where we've met with community leaders, elected leaders, and members of the community, where we've talked about, well, we've got $6 billion worth of needs. And then you get these complaints, well, I don't agree with that. I don't think you should go that route. We shouldn't go. Well, let me respond to the needs part of it. Yes, we have $6, $7, $8 billion worth of needs. We have an existing highway system that was entrusted to us by the state of Florida that we took over. We closed the system. We're getting all those users to pay for it. Our responsibility was to modernize the system, enhance it, expand it, make sure it moves, make sure it's safe. We're completing that with our work program. The toll rate policy that was adopted by this board, the debt management policy that was adopted by this board, was very forward-thinking. It talked about all of these additional projects that were going to be considered. Everything we do requires a toll. But in that toll rate policy, it says, or the debt policy, it says, if you're going to build a new project, you need to look at it now as a standalone. You've got to set a toll rate that will allow us to recoup our principal and interest within the first 5 years. The system can support it up to 5 years. But in the 5th years, it has to make enough money to pay for its principal interest. And if it doesn't, then it's not a feasible project unless you're looking for other partners that are going to put in money. So as far as addressing the $6 billion needs outside of the existing system, there's a mechanism of how we move that forward. And I think we should be a lot more deliberative. I need to be a lot more deliberative in getting the state of Florida, the county, the municipalities to put money into the process, to put money. If they want to help themselves, if they want us to help them, then they need to help themselves. And it doesn't have to be cash. It could be easements of right-of-way. It could be relaxed development requirements if we're going to look at hubs. There's a whole host of things that, our partners can put to the table rather than just MDX has to give the money. So I wanted to address that, not to leave it lingering.
Probably a lot of questions, and we're going to open it up. So if you just raise your hand so you're acknowledged or chime in. Very important is, remember, we cannot reduce the tolls. We cannot reduce the tolls. We have a commitment with our bondholders. So in lieu of everything that we can do to ease the pain is, what are we doing and are we being efficient? And if we are being efficient, then what are we doing with that excess money? We're giving it back. We're giving it back to the same people that made it possible to do the system. That's basically what's here. And we're going to be very prudent about it because we have to be physically responsible. So with that, I open it up and I see Mr. Cancio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for giving the opportunity to the board members and the employees, to bring big ideas. I put it, something here, maybe they are different. I have 10 points. I spoke with, with the director the other day that I invited him for lunch. Mine first was, because when I was appointed by the governor of Florida, he was very concerned about, the increase in tolls. Mine, and I want to be very humble, but I am very straightforward, and I want that everybody in the way that I go, because I am not here to please or be political correct with some people. To me, reduce, the MDX 836 toll 25% in both ways, between the Palmetto and the I-95, after a feasible study to see if it not affect the bond rating, but will alleviate the user toll costs. I know that we need a resolution approved by the majority of the MDX board. Second, open tolls for 24 hours in all 5 national holidays. Third, 24 hours before imminent hurricane coming to hit South Florida, open tolls and leaving open until the severe weather begins. I hope that we don't have a major hurricane, but sometime in the Miami-Dade County emergency control take too much time to make that decision, okay? Fourth, sign in all finished projects that MDX has made monetary contribution in the implementation acceleration with the toll money and bond to the user and public. No, that signs, The other, the fifth is the chair and the executive director to be, maybe you are visual, but more visual in front of the county, MPO, the many other organizations, the school board, because you know what's going on, and to tell, the people how, with the media also, because sometimes the media, complain that we are not able, to talk with them. And because you are a very executive season advertising lady, and the director know all the function, administration, operation of the authority. 6, continue to work with Miami-Dade College with the communication department for videos and advertising ideas. 7, create a program to give community hours to students that will work as a volunteer in MDX during the summer, and maybe someday will be employees or MDX board members. And as I said before, and maybe the other day you caught me very quick, that I am not in favor of the increase in the budget for the communication. And the other thing, MDX open house to elect officials once a year. I think that the director told me that they have before. I know many people come. This is my humble ideas, working together with the open communication between elected officials, toll users, general public, board members, staff, and media. We will achieve more, and we will be more productive. And the other day, for the last, I was assisting a TV program with the anchor, Helen Aguirre Ferre, and was the county commissioner from District 11, Juan Zapata, that he was complaining that, that the majority of the board members live in the east side of the tolls. I live in the east side, but I go, 112 every day to my business in Medellin. And that we are not transparent, and that is, it was not that great, but, later on I heard through the director that the Zapata want to have the 836 extended, to Chrome and to Kendall, but, politicians are in that way. And I have been only, for 92 days in this position, but I want to thank every one of the staff because they have been very good for me, because with my concern, my question, very polite. I am learning about the Miami-Dade Expressway Authority. And also I would like, maybe to thank, Mr. Toledo, after I told him, hey, after the 112, after the 15th Avenue, the straight lines, now the straight lanes, they are great, and that is very I want to thank you because they're looking great. Also, the other side, in the west side, that the chairwoman also was talking about, the big cones, they are gone. The other thing that I think that we have to talk that is not MDX, but affect the MDX in the 112, is that, that the Miami-Dade County is taking too much time in the bridge of 36th Street. That affects, our system. And that is something that maybe we have to, maybe the director or you, chairwoman, talk with that people. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did the staff want to address some of the points?
Yeah, if I could, and I think I caught all of them. As far as reducing the tolls, I think we've addressed that. We legally can't reduce the toll rates. I think what we proposed in this idea was an innovative way of achieving the same thing in a different way. As far as lifting tolls on national holidays, which I spoke to Mr. Cancio about, we did that once in 2007, Thanksgiving, and we got a cease and desist letter from the state of Florida because it violates the toll structure. We cannot lift tolls. We cannot give free passage on our highways. It's a violation of our agreements. As far as hurricane plan, there's already a plan in place that emergency management, and we follow emergency management about lifting tolls, and it's already in place, and it's consistent for all of the agencies in this community. Signage we've addressed. Signage we've addressed. Being more visible to the various agencies and media. We talked about that. I agree with you. Miami-Dade College, we continue to be friends with them, and we'll continue to work with them on their video and assistance in the community outreach programs. As far as community hours for students, we've been doing that since 2007 with Barbara Jordan. We actually have 2 interns, 2 students, high school students right now, who are working in different departments, and we've been doing that since 2007, Mr. Cancio, and actually some of those students still are our friends and communicate with us after they've graduated from college and are working elsewhere. So we've done that. And as far as the Ideas Roundtable elected officials, like I mentioned to Mr. Cancio, last year, the year before last, when the legislature came after our bonding ability, we held we asked Chairman Eddie Gonzalez at the time to host a meeting, public meeting, about tolls. Invited us, invited the state, Turnpike, county, municipalities, anybody who dealt with tolls. It was over at the City of Miami Chamber. That's where they wanted to hold it. 7 elected officials showed up. All of us made presentations. All of us did. One representative asked me questions. I answered them very clearly. The focus of the entire meeting was one state representative attacking the county on why Bearcut Bridge was posted and where did all the toll dollars go to repair Bearcut Bridge. So we've done it in the past. We've actually held delegation meetings in this building in the past. So we'll continue to offer that, and we'll continue to offer, information and be as open as we can about our operations. So thank you for your
But Javier, let me say something.
Yes.
When I spoke with you, we have lunch Tuesday. I had made my big think ideas already, and you told me. And also, the other comment that I would like to make, that the Mayor Ferrer referred to me about the managed lane. What I told you, that if the managed lane, with the managed lane going to take a space in the regular lane, I am against. If we have a wider lane, some people going to use it. To me, managed lane is express lane. What I don't like that is the federal government, the I-95, when I go to my house in the afternoon, sometimes it's $10.95. Maybe I can afford it, but not many people that are able to afford it. I think that is, and I know that the governor love or maybe like managed lane, but the governor is the governor, and I am Pepe Cancio.
I wasn't addressing you. I was saying the governor, and you took it as a personal thing. But
No. You mentioned my name, about 2 minutes ago.
Well, look, if I may, Madam Chair. we're not going to get into a managed lane discussion here. I understand that. But I would like to point out that before managed lanes, the average speed at 5 o'clock on I-95 going north was 19 miles an hour. Today, it is 48 miles an hour in the non-paying portion.
I think that you don't drive 95 north, Mauricio.
It's not my idea. I'm giving you the verified information from the Florida Department of Transportation.
They are not right.
Well, that maybe is another discussion.
Yeah.
But the official figures are that the traffic is moving substantially higher, and everybody that's looked at it for financing purposes, like Fitch and Moody's, they love it.
Right.
They love the idea. And you know what? It's being put in Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, St. Petersburg. So in other words, the governor, he doesn't like him. He loves it. He's spending $3.5 billion. That's the largest expenditure in transportation in the 8 years that he's going to be governor. By far will be managed lanes, and it's going to be all over the state of Florida.
Right.
Very good. Thank you. Holland.
Yes, afternoon, Madam Chair, Honorable Board. Here are the concerns that I have, and I've oftentimes tried to just be quiet about some of this stuff. But we've allowed this whole transportation issue to become so politicized in carrying out other people's agenda. The whole purpose of MDX was to try to take politics out of it and come up with solutions. And I hear people say so many times, I don't want tolls, I don't want this, I don't want that. I agree, I don't want tolls. Do you know where your transportation system would be if you didn't have some toll dollars right now to create some of this infrastructure? You get no federal dollars, no state dollars, at least particularly on the roads that we've been dealing with. And if you look at the MDX roads compared to anybody else's roads, they are impeccable compared to 95 and some of the other roads. When the governor says he has concerns about tolls, the raising of tolls, but he signs legislation that increases tolls on all the other systems, including the turnpike and everything that goes down south, to me it's a farce when people play those games. When you have legislators who say the same thing and they vote in support of this stuff here on all the others, but I guess because these are local roads and they have local residents who complain, they say, oh, well, I don't want tolls in our community. I'd rather all the great roads to be outside of Miami-Dade County, and I'd rather go back to horse and carriage. And to me, it is a travesty that we play these games and we aren't just very sincere with people. Nobody wants taxes. Nobody wants tolls. Nobody wants a decrease in their salary. Nobody wants to pay more for bread. Nobody wants to pay more for gas. We want to live in a city where we sue over every little thing. If there's a crack in the road and you bust a tire, somebody wants to sue you for that. They sue government. I mean, where do we really want to be? Where do we want to be when we grow up? Because we seem to be fighting growing up. We want to remain as kids. And I recognize that we have issues in this community. Nobody wants to pay. But I tell you what, everybody wants to find things out of government. To me, it's about transparency and putting the money to work where it should be going. And I think, and I could be wrong, doesn't mean we can't create a better process and a better widget. When over 90% of your money is actually going into your road system versus when you look at these other systems where it does not happen, that's something to be proud of. When you look at over 80% of your contracts being local contracts, that means people working. In addition, some of them paying tolls because they're working on MDX roads. They can they can have a job in order to pay tolls. When you look at almost 25% of small and minority businesses in this community working on MDX contract. So there's a ripple effect of very positive things that are taking place. And I know it's easy for people to play politics and cast one against the other, and this politician doesn't want this because maybe their ox got gored on something else. I don't get caught up into who the contractors are. And we've done a yeoman's job of spreading this work around to a whole host of people. In fact, we have celebrated on this board. Every time a new contractor gets hired, we have celebrated. There's a new contractor. There's a new contractor. There's a new contractor. And I don't like when people, and it has nothing to do with board members, it's just the stuff that you hear in the street and the media and all that stuff. Well, how can you make a decision on tolls when you're never at the meetings? The record says I'm here 75% of the time. I have a law practice I have to run. I have depositions, I have trials, I have a number of things, and other board members have some of the same tasks. I'm not retired. I apologize. I wish I was. I wish I was independently wealthy. I would make more time. But you do these things from a passion standpoint to try to improve in your community, and then people sit on the sideline when they get paid to come up with these same solutions. Your state legislators get paid to deal with transportation issues. Your governor gets paid to deal with transportation issues. Your county commission, your federal folk, they get paid. I do this for free like the rest of you all do it for free. You know something? We could do away with tolls. The state can deal with it any day. Pay the bonds off, take all the toll plazas off the road, and see where it gets you. Citizens would be happy now, but see where it will get you later. When you look at what has happened in transportation allocations now, where we are now. So people play these games, and it's easy to play it because it sounds good in the media, and it plays out well. But at the end of the day, what we have done has been extremely well. And I've been critical of things, and I tell people, whenever a vote goes down, if I'm on the losing side, the majority has prevailed, and I move on to the next issue. It doesn't become something I linger on for months and years later. This toll policy was passed 2.5 years ago. The fact that we're still dealing with this 2.5 years later, instead of trying to make sure the projects that we're committed to are done efficiently and timely to bring about some ease of congestion and movement of transportation for taxpayers, to me is a travesty that we still waste time on this here. Let's move on to the next issue and make things work. And we spend more time dealing with nonsensical stuff because people on the outside who don't want to solve the problem, because not one of them have come. I even asked that day when we were here dealing with the toll policy change, if somebody is willing to tell me they can get the state to commit to these improvements, I'm with throwing away all tolls. But it ain't going to happen. And if you put them in here right now and ask them to file legislation and use their political strength, because the Dade delegation has some political strength. Let's call it like it is. They have some political strength. Bring them in here, have them file a legislation to pay the bonds off, remove the tolls. You won't get anybody to do it. Not seriously, because it's easy to say, yeah, I'm against the tolls. Solve the freaking problem. Solve the freaking problem. Nobody wants to do that. And here we are trying to do it from a volunteer standpoint, which is what our mission was, and then people want to sit and just criticize. I don't have a whole lot of time for it. And with all honesty, it jades your perspective of even dealing with some of this stuff sometimes. Sometimes you walk away saying, you know what? Why do I take time out of my professional life on a volunteer basis to hear this nonsense when people don't want to solve a problem? Maybe we ought to just do away with government. Some people would say, hey, just get away with all government. Hey, do away with, why should we have trash pickup? Why should we have animal services? My wife hates animals until she got a dog recently. So if you had asked her some years ago about the budget for animal services, she said, that's a waste of money, until she got a dog. Now all of a sudden she understands the value of animal services. Some people don't live in a condo. They can care less how the trash get picked up. But if you're in a residential neighborhood and that trash is on your street, you want to know, hey, somebody didn't pick the trash up on Tuesday. What's going on? And you start making those calls. We become dependent on government to do things. The thing is just making sure we do it efficiently instead of sitting here whining about, well, how come you're putting money in animal services? How come you're saving the manatee? Some people criticize, why are we wasting money on manatee preservation? But for some people, that is extremely important. And guess what? There's government dollars that go to that. And so when you look at infrastructure, and this is something that moves goods and services in your community, makes you competitive on a global level, helps you increase economic development, allows major industry to be willing to come into your community to invest in their enterprises because they can move goods and services. And we say, something, we don't really want to invest into that. In fact, we'd rather be or go back to being the fourth poorest community or major city in all of America. And I'm saying this, I think it's wrong, which is why I voted for the toll policy 2.5 years ago. Now I wish I had said no and just let everybody drive this train right into a wall and then see how many people will be happy, because you won't be here. I won't be here by the time the infrastructure dilapidation truly kicks in, and most of you all won't. It'll be your kids who are sitting in there trying to figure out, now really how do we do this? And it's no different than us homeowners, people who own homes. You try having a house for 15 years or your 30-year mortgage, and you don't put some investment back in that house beyond your mortgage payments and your insurance, and see what happens to that house. The roads are the same way. They cost to create, They cost to maintain, and you have to bite that bullet if you want that luxury of safe and efficient roads. I wish we can get on to dealing with some of this stuff.
Robert would run for something because I want to vote for him.
If anybody ever thought that you were quiet, now they really know.
Was great, my friend.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for bringing 2.5 years ago decision based on what could be a reality of tomorrow. But today, we're trying to step aside everything of that background noise that's out there. And yes, you're right. There are genuinely some people that are definitely hurting because they used to ride the system for free. Those movements were not told. So they were riding a system that was never intended free. It was never free because other people were paying. Now everybody has to pay something. And those that are fully using the system, they are genuinely hurting because they didn't have that impact before. But what we're trying to do here is basically step back to move forward. And what we're saying is, with this particular item, we want MDX to continue to be efficient. And if you're efficient with what you're collecting, then give it back to the same people that are paying into the system. But with a caveat, if you are genuinely paying back into the system, if you are in good standing, if you are a SunPass customer, if you are using it, this isn't a WIC check to everybody. This is a check if there is efficiency here and accountability, and to those people that pay back. There are certain parameters that we cannot move ourselves into. We cannot roll the tolls back. We cannot reduce the tolls. We cannot give a free day of the tolls. And all those that continue to speak those things and excite the people of the community and the media regarding what they're going to try to do and what they want to do, it's a wall. It's a wall, okay? We cannot be in a pirate ship. We're all in it together because there's a liability at stake. We have to take care of our bondholders. We're committed. We have to stay true to the program that began, and then within there, we need to go back and see what else can we do and be efficient so we can move the whole thing forward. Thank you. And we continue with other comments.
I'm going to have to excuse myself for similar reasons of having to go to work. Just want to make sure it's not that I'm walking away from anything, okay? I will.
Yeah, but before you go, I want to give you something. Maria Luisa, would you pass something out? Madam Chair, would you?
Excellent, please.
Would you recognize me? On Tuesday, I will be 80 years old. I have lived in this community for 62 years. I've served in public service for over 30 years, elected and appointed. So half of my time here I've used to do public service. I've been like Maritza and Robert, 10 years on MDX. So that's part of those 30 years. We have, and I know this doesn't fit here, and I apologize because I misunderstood a little bit, but we're moving ahead with the strategic master plan, which this is not. Now I understand. But since I've gone to the trouble of writing this and explaining it, I'm not going to go over it today. I'm not going to take your time, but just take it home and read it, and we'll send it also by email. But here's the point that I do want to make. It isn't rollback tolls, and it isn't a couple of legislators in Tallahassee. Now, the Miami Herald and front page story for a week, just hammering MDX on tolls. And it's Helen Aguirre Ferre, who I love very much. She's married to one of my sons. on her program last Sunday with Douglas Hanks from the Miami Herald was, in my opinion, totally unbalanced. She wasn't fair. So we're getting hit over and over and over and over again. And we're concerned, and I think with good reason. There are many solutions. I think what the chair and staff have come up with, the executive director, Marie Schaefer, is brilliant. But I think it's time, in my opinion, it's long overdue for what Maritza and Robert and I, for the last 10 years, and Javier for the last 8 years, have been talking about and going towards, and that is to step forward in one simple, doable, major project that breaks through, that changes the paradigm, that changes how people move around. Now, the background is really very simple. The Cato Institute has done an absolutely fantastic, and I've sent all of you copies of it, a study that says rail systems don't work. I know it's a libertarian, real right-wing institute and what have you, but you know what? Facts are facts. And what they do is they take 20 of the American cities and that have rail systems, and they say, here's how much it costs, and here's how much it costs to operate. And what they say is, they don't work. It's yesterday's technologies. Rails have been around in the United States and in the world for 200 years. Now, yeah, true, we don't use a steam engine anymore, but it's yesterday's technology. And so as we go into this bold new world of technology, we have to figure out ways of using our assets so that we can solve problems. Now, whether you like managed lanes or not, that's not the issue. They're being built. In other words, the Palmetto Expressway managed lane system is going to be under construction this year and will be finished by 2017. It's done. It's on its way. In other words, it's there. Now, the question is this. Can we use our roads to decongest further by helping the transit system? Now, I'm not proposing that we pay money for transit to operate, because that's not our business. We have to look at it like if we were Miami International Airport. They give you a road to get in, parking, a terminal where you get your ticket and you push your bags. You get on the waiting area, an area to load the planes, a tarmac, taxi, runway. What MIA does not do, it does not run American Airlines, and it does not run, and it doesn't subsidize Delta or British Airways when they lose money. What I'm saying is we have to look at it as if we were an airport. So I don't see any reason why we can't, with new technology that somebody else is going to operate, provide the infrastructure where our infrastructure exists, where we can connect hubs. Why express buses? Because they cost 10% of light rail. Because the operating costs are 1/3 of what a light rail system costs. So, if it fits, wear it. Why reinvent something that isn't going to happen? I know that the mayor of Dade County and Miami Beach want to do Baylink. Baylink is now up to $770 million. It's going to be over $1 billion. It's going to take 10 years to do. It's not going to happen. In the meantime, I know my friend Steve Bovo wants to go CSX and get a train system. When the numbers come in on that train system, it's going to be prohibitive. It's not going to happen. So why don't we use our MDX highways to bring people to the MIC? Because the MIC is really the Grand Central Station. And once they get to the MIC, they're in downtown Miami. They're at the University of Miami. They're at Hialeah. That's where they're going. So they're all places that they can go. And if you look at, especially, I think, with this overpass of 874 that goes right into the heart of West Kendall. And I'm not talking about billions of dollars. I'm talking about an infrastructure expenditure that I know will be under $200 million that we could connect with parking this system, and we would give 1 million people in the southwest part of Miami-Dade County. Why the southwest part? Because it's the most underserved, and I think this has to be done scientifically. I'm not saying that this is it. I think we have to study it. And when HTM Smith, or whatever their name is, comes back with a report as to where the highest ridership and where the highest, I guarantee you we can come back with a system that will pay for itself. In other words, we got to get repaid for the monies that we invest, but that will decongest the southwest part of Miami-Dade County. Now, maybe it's Miami Beach. I don't think it's Miami Beach because there's the ridership to Miami Beach is, at nights and in the weekends. That's not where the demand is. And as far as the northeast part of town is concerned, I think that's an area that needs studying also. But we don't have a highway that goes there. I'm just talking about the highways that MDX has. So what I'm saying is, my God, it is a doable, simple, and after the strategic plan is concluded, I would hope if this is part of it, that we would have a meeting, Madam Chair, because to see if we can push this quickly, because I believe done with the private sector, because I think this has to be a private sector project, with development, with transportation, what's it called, Javier? Infrastructure, access?
Transportation infrastructure financing.
Which is something that we're studying now carefully. And with development rights, that as a combination of those things will give us the financial wherewithal to do something that would, in a very simple way, in the next 2 years, decongest not only 836, but give all those people that live south of FIU all the way down to the Redlands area a way to get into the airport and into downtown Miami and Miami Beach. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vice Chair. I think what we need to do is move your idea into play so it goes back to test against our policy and what we could do and come back to WAPS.
Actually, yeah, we've had that conversation. I think the strategic plan, and I think that's why I think Vice Chair Ferre talked about the strategic plan. I think that's the basis of it. I think the transportation hubs, the mini mix, looking at transit, I think, yeah, absolutely. So we're on the same page there.
So move it into.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. If there's any other questions or comments on the item that we just saw, if not, we're going to move into the next big one because there's a lot of other things on this Think Big. Yes. I'm afraid to give you the microphone. You yield to Alfredo?
I'm not sure how this was supposed to proceed. You have big ideas.
Yeah, we have another.
Actually, Ferre mentioned one that I am deeply interested in. I've talked to the director about it. And moving, I live west of the Palmetto. In fact, I live west of the Turnpike.
Right.
So I drive this road more than anyone, and that's where the population base is. And people who live there, their biggest concern is not the tolls. It's getting to their kids' basketball game, getting to the wedding, not sitting in traffic while my son's baseball game was being played, which I've done now for 35 years.
Right. It's very difficult when you have that. Then you really know stress.
The improvements we're putting in play are palpable. My dad was laughing at me the other day because I was giddy telling him I'm going 60 miles an hour on the 836.
Yeah.
Okay?
Hey, wait, don't say that too loud.
I think
That's
one thing that should underline what we're talking about is how we're going to pay for it. And how we're going to pay for it may require people to work with us, to be as creative as our group, Marie and the director and you, Madam Chairman, were about getting this problem, this perceived problem fixed. And I would suggest that having park and ride, where we have any number of shopping centers that are absolutely empty most of the day.
It's in here. You're gonna, if you give
Hold
the
on,
thing
but give me a
bid,
second.
you're gonna notice
This-
some
this-
things.
This is just going
Yeah.
to take a second. Listen to everyone else. But all of that has to be paid for. And what I don't want is another discussion about tolls and paying for this. I think better minds than mine can come up with at least 10 different ways of doing it that would generate the money. I'll give you one. One that has been discarded by every single politician I've talked to, including those that came here and say, don't increase your tolls. And I said, we don't have to. And they said, how? Increase your tourist tax by $1. I have never in my life, I always get that reaction. Not once in my life, and I had a son at Columbia University for 3 years, not once did I say, oh my God, I'm going into New York and I got to pay a tourist tax. And not once. Our tourist tax is minimal. You think our Brazilian people that come visit, the Canadians, the Europeans, all of which are buying $1 million units in Brickell Avenue for cash, are worried about that? So it's a fiction when our tourist industry says, oh my God, $1 in tax, we're going bankrupt. But that $1 in tax could give us all of the money we need, including getting away with our tolls. But no one wants to face any reality in this town. And the truth is, if you're going to have a good community to live in, you have to spend money on it. I'm the first one that attacks taxes for everything. Well, then go get the money from somewhere else. And a tourist, he lives somewhere else. And so consequently,
Somebody we don't know,
if I can
right?
help the people here pay for their water, their sewer, and their transportation by getting money from people who visit us and use our water, our sewer, and our transportation, we ought to be doing that. And I think is missing not only a great opportunity, but you're not doing your job. If every time you got to find money, you got to go into my pocket to get it.
Totally agree. But, you know, that is outside of our purview, and I guess we do have to make an appeal to Miami-Dade County, perhaps to think differently and act differently.
Oh,
So I
Miami-Dade
don't know
County-
how we do that.
Miami-Dade County and our Dade delegation had no compunction by saying that what we did was wrong. So I'm giving them the opportunity to build our roads by doing something proactive, that or anything else. Just come up with the money.
If I may, and Board Member Gonzalez, I think it's some elected officials are listening, because at the Chamber Goals Conference, Commissioner Bovo mentioned that a solution to fund rail in the future is a tourist tax. So he mentioned it.
I've had
So-
that conversation with Mr. Bobo
Mentioned that.
2 or 3
He
times.
got a lukewarm response from it, by the way.
Yes,
Then-
that's his
then the-
problem.
then the
He's
host-
one-
Everybody
he's
wants,
one
but
that's
nobody
carrying
wants
the
to pay
leadership
for it.
torch.
And
Every single time, people look at it and say no.
Then the host asked me for other ideas, and I said, a transit impact fee. Developers are building along our transit lines that have developed for the last 30 years and are actually benefiting and advertising that you're next to a transit line. New urbanism. Yet every new rider on the transit system costs Miami-Dade County $1.84. How does that make sense? So why not, so I propose that. Lukewarm response as well. So
I hate to break the conversation. We all agree with what you're saying. A lot of people want, we all know what want is, we all know what need is, and then no one acts. I've always said there's a lot of politicians, not enough leaders. We need leaders to step up. There is another innovative ideas. There's many here that basically takes us out of our comfort zone and does provide another option to getting out of our car. And I want you to think about this particular idea. It's the heading of it is mobility, economic opportunity. I want you, when this gets presented, I want you to think outside the box. Everybody has been dangling the carrot of the MIC, and nobody's doing anything with the MIC. Well, if we are given the management of the MIC, if ever that happens, there are things that we can do with the funding or the excess funding, or the proceeds, or however you want to call it, of things that can be done to help ease the traffic. And before you go to this one, the shuttle, I want you to go back to the big one to then get back to the shuttle's idea, because we're trying to be very innovative and different.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, so this idea is, as the chairwoman said, combines mobility and economic opportunities in one, and it has to do with the idea that's being looked at now by the MPO, and we're looking at it from the perspective of how does MDX become a major player in a potential east-west commuter rail using 836 as that corridor. And when we do that, we look at the opportunities with the Dolphin Park and Ride, where we've already partnered with MDT and DOT to facilitate the construction, accelerate what is going to be an express bus service on 836. But using that hub at Northwest 122nd Avenue as a potential stop for a commuter rail, because it's about giving options. It's not just about an express bus service. It's also about getting people another choice of transportation. If you don't want to take the bus, if you don't want to take your car, there is the potential here for a commuter rail that takes you into the MIC, and then from the MIC, you have an opportunity to continue to go north to other areas, using Tri-Rail. This is it's an opportunity to partner with SFRTA, CSX, Miami-Dade County, and the private sector, because as you stated here before, the private sector is going to be very important in how we're going to develop these opportunities and bring it to fruition. Obviously, it is a big idea, so it does require a lot of investment in researching, in looking at how we're going to do it. So, it's not something that we're going to do immediately, but I think it's something that working together, and MDX potentially taking the lead on this, is going to be able to. I believe we could make something happen here, and I believe that we have partners already discussing this, and we see that there is an opportunity for a commuter rail that comes into the MIC and services that West Dade. And that's just a phase one. I mean, we see this as a phase one of what could be a potential for growth, because once you establish ridership on a commuter rail along this corridor, you can look at rail lines, underutilized rail lines in the Southwest Dade area that you can also provide service there. So it's about starting something.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I see that the two stars that are, one's on 97th and the other one's on 117th.
Yes.
So, that's pretty close by. Are we going to do two?
The concept we're looking at is looking at one or two. You're looking at two dense areas, because we see this as servicing the Doral area, which is a very heavy populated area, providing choices to a community, an area that...
You're going to serve the Doral area with this train?
Well, 97th Avenue is in Doral. That area right there is adjacent to Doral. So we're saying a station right off of 97th Avenue bridge.
And how much is this rail going to cost? This rail system going to cost?
Well, we've put some initial numbers together. Obviously, a new rail line, you're looking at about $90 million per mile, but you have an existing rail line. This is, and let me caveat that, we're talking about new. Rail today is going to cost between $90 to $100 million per mile. I'm sorry, $8 to $10 million per mile. Let me
I know, but you're not talking about a new.
I'm talking about using an existing rail line. So when you look at an existing rail line and you look at the opportunities of using an existing rail line,
but you have to upgrade it, improve it, and you have to put.
Now you're talking about potential double tracking in certain areas to allow for headways, to allow for trains getting in and out.
But I'm asking, how much is it going to
cost? So that cost per mile now comes down to maybe a capital cost on the rail of $8 to $10 million, depending on how long those headways are.
For the whole thing, or for per mile?
I would say per mile, but you're not looking. To accomplish this, you're not really looking at long distances for double tracking. You're probably looking at several thousand feet that combined may come up with 1 mile of total double tracking.
And how about the stations?
The stations, you're looking at about, I believe the number was in the neighborhood of about $2.5 million.
$2.5 million for a station?
And that is assuming
with air conditioning and waiting rooms?
With air conditioning covered.
Wow.
If you tailor it down to what it is that you want to do, maybe it's an open facility with a roof, your costs are going to go down. So, I mean, we're looking at numbers at the high end for an implementation here of using an existing line of a capital cost of anywhere between 20 to 30 at the high end, and we can reduce that down as we further explore this option and we look at the partners that are going to come into it. And again, development is going to play a key role, and I'm going to discuss that in another slide, but development of these areas.
Who's going to run the train system?
I think that's left to be said, but I don't think MDX should be left out of that conversation. I think MDX could be the potential operator of an east-west commuter rail system.
MDX be an operator?
I think that if we take, the conversation is that if we end up operating the MIC, I think as part of that MIC enterprise, we can explore that opportunity. And I believe that's been some of the discussions we've had, and I don't think it should be off the table.
Well, I think we have to have an open mind on and everything. So,
and I think that was the purpose of these meetings, is to not box ourselves into any one thing, is really think outside the box and take some risks. And I think this is exactly what this does.
Just one last question, Madam Chair. Are you aware of how CSX has dealt with the state of Florida, Orlando, and all the other communities that it deals with?
I am very aware of that, and I think that's why our having partners in the commission, having the people partner up with us to make these things a reality is going to be an important factor in whether or not this is ever going to be a reality.
If I may, really quick, I think this idea was presented, I think, and Mr. Vasquez in here, but it was presented to Commissioner Bovo. This is not a new idea. Commissioner Martinez years ago looked at it when Sunrise was being developed. I think currently, right now, the MPO has been asked to look at it. There has been conversations between SFRTA and CSX, and CSX has stated that they're open to allowing the service to run there. Here's the question that we put on the table. Again, think big. If you were to take the MIC, which we know has proceeds, our potential proceeds, whether you have a station on 97th Avenue or just an expanded Dolphin Park and Ride, would the private sector, if you were to package this together, would the private sector participate? To what extent? What would the subsidy...
Running a rail system?
Would the private sector... Everywhere I go, I hear an elected official telling me, why don't we have a P3 for rail? And I explain all the reasons why that doesn't make sense, but they're still pushing it. So the question is, what can we do to incentivize the private sector to potentially, get involved?
If you're going to give them the development rights at the MIG, you bet you'll have people in line.
Again, it's on the table for conversation. That's the point.
But I might point out that there's not one in the world P3 project on trains. Not one. Doesn't exist.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I have to step out as well, and I was very much looking forward to going through the entire packet with the board, but I will review that as well and reach out to Javier and staff to understand the other elements. First and foremost, I just want to commend staff and yourself, Madam Chair, for the cashback program, the cashback dividend program, excuse me, to give the opportunity for our riders that utilize the system significantly and understanding that impact on them from an annual basis of a budget standpoint. That is a tremendous opportunity that we have at our footsteps to be able to give back to the community and just further the investment in our community. If that dividend is given back in December, where do you think those dollars are going to be invested? Right back into our community. And so I want to commend you all for that. And lastly, Mr. Mayor said he's not yet 80. And Mr. Holland, you said maybe for our board members, our children would be experiencing these issues. So if I calculate that, and I have the privilege and God's blessing to be alive for 50 years from now, hopefully I'll be able to see those impacts that we hopefully decide on today that will be delivered in the future and for years to come. So I'm very thankful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you leave, let's go ahead, and I'm going to ask for something. You want to comment, Holland? You're going to wait? Well, this is what I'm going to do. There's a little bit more road to cover on other items that are also very important. But the first one that we address, I think everybody understands the way it works. It's physically sound. It's the right thing to do, and I'm going to ask if there is a motion to move it into an action item.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, now it's an action item. Is everybody in favor?
Yes.
That the item? Anyone against? Okay, so now it's an action item, which means that we are a committee. We do have a majority, okay? So I'm going to call it as a question, as it is, so it can continue to move forward onto the board, so we can implement it. It's the motion for the dividend program, okay? So, what? Perfect. On the dividend program, I'm calling the question. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, just to inquire really quickly, the impact or effect that this has on the Advantage program.
Very good point, very good question. We know the answer. Yes.
Actually, see, the intent of the Advantage program was for the highest frequent users. What we would like to do is roll a lot of those into this program.
Perfect.
That's it.
Thank you.
So
We cannot run both. It's evolve that into this, because this could be bigger. Okay? So any other questions?
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
At least that the director takes some time with Board Member Fano to make sure she's up to speed on that, because I know that was some concern.
absolutely, and Board Member Pago and Board Member Weinberg.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure that they're fully briefed on it.
So if I understand this correctly, this new concept would substitute for the discounts that we've, and what does that do to truckers who
It falls
have-
in.
The truck policy, which is part of our toll rate policy, remains. Nothing changes there. The issue of the Advantage program was, remember, we had different tiers, and the Platinum program, which is the one that we've gotten, about 30,000 people, required 66 days out of 90. It was for the most frequent. It's very difficult to administer. We understand it. Whether you pick 66, whether you lower it to 50, whether you put it up at 52 or whatever it was, this program, which is based on how much you spend, and basically it sets a minimum. You have to at least spend $100 a year. I think we can fold a lot of it into this program. Now, the Advantage, we've got, the discount card. We've got people that don't qualify, wouldn't qualify. We would continue having that relationship, because at the end of the day, whether it's this program or the Advantage program, our goal was always to enter into a relationship with our customer, get their information, be able to communicate, because we can't. We don't have their information. We have information on 30,000 customers right now. The rest of it, we have to ask the Turnpike to give us a SunPass number, which is, a SunPass number.
We need to change that. So, yes.
Questions. Marie used some numbers, I think random numbers, to come up with a hypothetical. One of my concerns, I like the idea, so let me be clear. I'm concerned of what we're putting ourselves into. We're going to create a program. We really don't know the potential. So we got to be careful what we say, because then if we don't meet those expectations, then we really are going to be more susceptible to public scrutiny. Well, you created a program, you really thresholds didn't meet because some accounting, you didn't meet that threshold. You didn't get anything back. That was just a ploy. I mean, I could see so I'm concerned about the actual dollars, So you have a hypothetical example. You have a more detailed example or projection of what, I'm concerned to make a motion, an action, and then saying, well, we meant good, but really couldn't deliver. So
Talking about like sharing with Miami-Dade County on the arena.
that's a great example. It's a great example.
I think when you look at, when we put together, and we wanted to somehow put together a Advantage program or cash rewards program last year, the 66 days is not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed that people are going to achieve the 66 days either. And what we really looked at was, this organization makes its financial decisions and governs a certain way. The board of directors, we believe that what we put forth of meeting our financial objectives is doable. And there's no guarantee, and I gave the example that one year you may get more, one year you may get less. Some years you may not get anything, but another year you might get 30% back. So I think it's really our job to educate the public that they're a partner, they're an investor, they're investing into the system. And I think we should treat it that way. I think the cash reward, 66 days, is too complicated to communicate. I think it's too complicated for people to achieve it. I think this is a lot simpler. From a financial standpoint, if we exceed our financial projections, like, say, $7 million, that doesn't mean we're going to declare a $7 million dividend. We may only declare, $3 million. And only 50,000 people are in the program that year. So we would distribute that with various caps to those 50,000 people. It might be 100,000 people the following year. We may say, well, we're going to distribute 4 million. So it's our responsibility, I think, to manage those financial expectations.
Okay.
I'm not certain if I answered your
No,
question
you didn't.
around. But,
You didn't, because I was asking for more tangible. I'll leave it at that. Listen, I think the model is a great model because I wish they would do that with Marlin Stadium, where, you're going to get, as a matter of fact, if you all may recall, I wrote an article or an op-ed piece that, let's treat it as a business enterprise. And I think that's what we're doing here, which I like the concept. So I am fully supportive of the concept. And it should be a potential national model where anytime we do a public financing to say, okay, the Marlins, are now making money. We should get dividends on that after we pay back the stadium. Obviously, that didn't happen. So I think, again, I like the model. I'm just wanted to ask the questions about the actual numbers. And then, because I think, Cliff, you bring up a good point. We don't want to create something that we then can't deliver. So I was trying to dig down into the specific numbers. So, Madam Chair, I'll leave it at that.
The key is, it's the formula. It's what are we going to do with the excess money? If there is excess money, it goes back to the same stakeholders that are paying into the system. We're not making any promises of what it is, if it's 3 million, 4 million that's given back, 7 million, 10 millions, but one thing is for sure. It's all about MDX needs to continue to be efficient. It's going to look forward to being more efficient because it is accountable to its stakeholders and its bondholders. And once this is all said and done and approved, we can then walk in and say, I want this posted on the website. I'd like to see a thermometer be built, that it gets gauged and it gets fed with information on a monthly basis, so if it is being efficient or not. It's a scoreboard. Now, MDX has a scoreboard that they're living on a daily basis, posted what we are. Listen, we have to continue doing the business and the right decisions. This is the right decision to do. This is something that is manageable and it can be done. If we don't do this, think about this. I do believe MDX is going to be efficient. It is and historically has been efficient. And I want to know what you're going to do with that money. And if I haven't approved it and I didn't buy it and I didn't pay for it, then why are you spending it on something that I didn't buy into? So in this case, what we're doing is we're saying, listen, we sold you that this is a toll to pay for a construction program, to pay for maintenance, renewal and replacement, and operations. So you know what? Anything over that doesn't cover that, it's going back to you. You, the one that is paying for it. It's not going to be used for anything else.
Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I'd like to just put it in one simple phrase. What we're doing is we're taking our customers and making them stakeholders.
Correct.
That's it. In other words, we're making them stakeholders. And now they have a vested interest in seeing that we do our job well because they're going to get some money back.
Very true.
Thank you very much for your initiative.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone that would like to be recorded as a no? Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. And it goes on to the board.
Madam Chair, let me ask you a question because of the time. Would you, and this is again for the members here, because I think we're going to have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We won't have a quorum if Mr. Ferre leaves. If you're leaving or not, but I saw you with it. So I'm asking the question. If we haven't finished.
No, it's
Do
2:30.
you want us to schedule another one so we can go through the rest of
I
these
think we
ideas?
need to.
I think
Now we
to
all
a
have the
conversation.
Think Big. Yes, we do need to schedule another meeting because it is running late. And believe it or not, I have to catch that express lane on I-95 fighting traffic. And I think the charge at this time will probably be in the upwards of 10 and up. 10 and up.
Are you going to pay it happily?
I'm going to pay happily because I see everybody else left behind, and I'm going to get there. I know it cost me, but I'm going to get there. But I'm going to get there.
You can thank the state for that.
Yeah, what?
You can thank the state for that.
Yeah, you know what I don't like is that the lower cap was raised and no one heard about it. That's actually what I don't like. It increased to 50 cents, and no one heard about it from 25 to 50. So it was, an 100% increase, and I was like, excuse me?
Checking, we have the 45 miles regularly.
I'll be checking. With that, first I've got to say thank you very much for staying. Thank you very much for giving your time. Yes, we are volunteers, and yes, we have very good attendance, believe it or not, from being volunteers. I want a roll-away bed. I didn't just get one here just in case. And to staff, this was an amazing process because a lot of things that didn't even make this Think Big proposal presentation before us, it was things that absolutely MDX needs to do. And for some reason, they were not doing it, and now we know that it needs to be done. It gets people out of their comfort zone of doing the same thing again and again. So this was a great exercise, and we continue to look forward to the next time that we sit to continue finishing this. And always remember, here's an opportunity. If you have another idea, present it so we can discuss it and see how we can elevate it.
Madam Chair, just two quick things, if we can just add on for the next meeting. If one of those can take a look at on these corridors that they're talking about creating or working with CSX and the others on, if there's a way of maybe doing some sort of station where you can load your car on on a, whatever they call it, the little train, and take it into downtown. And also we can look at something like the little zip cars. I know I saw something in there at some of these stations. How would that work? 'Cause the mayor's always mentioned the reason we don't have the ridership, people don't want to get out of their cars. But if they have a way at the end of that ride to be able to move, the last mile, I think we can do something.
In the rest of the presentation that are being experiments in other parts of the country, but it's something that I think that we can easily implement. There are short terms, low-hanging fruit ideas, and then there are very long terms, like one of the ones that the last one that was presented. So with that, everybody, think big and don't think about a toll.
Thank you.
Thank you.